Hi, I'm Dr. Angela McBurdy of DrFlute.com, and today's flute tip is on balancing your flute. When you're playing your flute, you want to have the right hand positions. The right hand positions are going to help you hold on to your flute better. It will help you have a more relaxed arm through here, so to prevent further injury or tendonitis type issue. It will also give you more flexibility in your fingers so that they move faster. And you know what? The more balanced you are, the more relaxed you can be, and then you can play longer because you're not having hand positions. So let's just talk about how you balance your flute and then what can throw off that balance. I have videos that show you exactly how I think you should have each hand, and each one. I have one that talks about your right hand, one that talks about your left hand, and exactly how they should you should put them on. So I'm not going to go into detail about the exact finger hand positions, but just in generalities. You have 4 balance points on your flute, and if any one of those are off, it's going to give you problems. And maybe you don't have problems now, but over a long period of time, it can cause you some issues. So let's talk about those 4 balance points. And when we balance, we need things coming from above and below, and then from either side. And that gives us a good balance. And from on top, we have our right hand, your pinky on your E flat key. That gives us balance there. And from below, you have your thumb. So your right hand handles the up and the down motion here. I can hold it. I mean, this flute is very light. It's 8 ounces, so I can hold it very easily like this. But I could hold my, I guess if I don't have that first finger down, it would be a little bit more difficult. If I'm resting it on my shoulder, I've got those 2 balance points right there. In my left hand, I'm balancing it from my lip going out on the lip plate here, and then your first finger coming this way. With those 4 balance points, I don't need to hold on to the flute in any other way. So it's perfectly balanced with that. And so when I have students, I have a college student, but they're a beginner, and they're having a hard time taking off their thumb key here to play a C. And, you know, the flute is slipping and they don't know what to do, and then their fingers hang off. And I'm trying to get them to relax about their hands because they're a little bit tense, and then showing them that if you're balanced on these 4 places, your thumb can go off and you're still holding. So the first place where there can be problems is where you're holding it here with this finger, which comes from the outside in. If you're not holding it in the right spot, right on top of that knuckle, your flute can slip. I feel like because of the years that I've been playing, that indentation right here to put the flute on top is pretty defined. But I often will take my finger and feel along that student's finger, whether they're young students or old, and say right here is where you put it. Because sometimes they just need you to show them exactly. You're not on top of the knuckle just sitting here. You're in that groove on top of the knuckle coming this way. And then that helps hold that flute there. Another place where you can be off balance is if your thumb is bent back here. If that thumb is bent, you don't have the same control. It stiffens up your hand. I think you probably can balance the flute. I still can hold it properly. I mean, my thumb doesn't have to be on when I'm balancing. But if that thumb is bent, it takes my hand and makes it feel much more stiff, and that's going to interfere with that balance and the ease of which I can play. Another place is when this thumb is sticking out. If that thumb comes out, so I think the right place is if you were to draw a straight line down from the edge of the flute and it was perpendicular to the floor here, and I would barely touch the tip of my thumb. I have some students that want to play this way, so their thumb is coming up not on the fingernail, but they're playing it like this, that's a much more stiff hand position, and that will cause you tension in here. I mean, I can feel it just by doing that. I feel that tension come through here. So the thumb needs to be on his side and then just equal with the edge of the flute here. All right, if that finger is there, you're less likely to let these fingers hang off. And that creates a different balance problem as well. If those fingers are off, I've got to do a lot more work with my pinky to hold on to that flute. It just makes my hand feel off balance. So you're looking for the perfect balance. Now, is your hand going to look exactly like mine? Well, maybe not, because you might have large hands, really large hands. I have a couple students that have large hands, and what that means is I'm going to move this foot joint to fit their hand better. On this Guo flute, this foot joint here does not move, so I can't change it. But if I had someone with a really large hand, I would move it to where it is here. If it's someone with a small hand, I would move it this way a little bit so the ball here is more in the middle of the keys, and then your pinky reaches a lot easier. Another place where balance is thrown off is when this pinky hangs off the key here and doesn't stay here. A lot of students will stick it straight up, which I think is a little bit better of a balance. But I've seen even a professional recording of an orchestra. I'm not going to say which orchestra, but the person played, and I had a close-up on the flute in that orchestra, and then they did this, and they came up and played. I suppose that if that's how you play for years and years, you learn to deal with that and make it work. But I think why? This is so much more efficient. Your finger's right there. But I think that throws off the hands. You can feel it. You can just feel your hand being pulled down because that pinky is down. And it's going to pull you off if you have open holes. These are closed, but if you have open holes, it's going to pull your hand off. Sticking up in the air, it's not quite as weirdly balanced there, but it is a little bit. And that's with any of the fingers up in the air. If I'm putting my fingers up, number one, it's awkward finger movements, but it's also just going to be a different balance situation when I'm bringing them down. And yes, I know I'm exaggerating, and you're not going to have all your fingers sticking up straight in the air all the time, but for a good balance, you want your hand to be looking like this. You want your hand to be like this. It's not natural for them to be like this. It's not natural for you to have your hand and these fingers here. But if you take your hand and it's all floppy and relaxed and you do this, that's what your hand looks like. And you put your hand on the flute like that. So those are just some small areas where I think sometimes we go wrong with our hand positions, apart from studying a hand really deeply, which I do on my right hand and my left hand videos and go into it just a lot more. But we're just talking about those balance points and how we keep that flute balanced apart from those 4 spots while we're playing. Because with a balanced flute, we're going to play a lot faster. We'll have a smoother movement from one note to the next, and it's not going to be bothering your tone. If you're unbalanced, I think that head joint moves on the lip, and then you wobble here as well. So we need everything balanced so that the sound comes out in a beautiful, beautiful way. And then your technique can grow. So think about those 4 balance points when you're practicing. And then think about, are you doing anything, like use a mirror while you're practicing? Are you doing anything that could cause your hands to be cramped or out of balance with each other so that you can have smooth playing and a beautiful tone? That's today's flute tip.